I think Kasumi asked me
Thank you.
Kasumi asked me that last week, sort of how I got to where I am on the scripture. Is I was reading John 10:10, which says, "The thief comes to steal and to kill and to destroy, but I have come to give you life and give it to you abundantly." And so I backed up and read what was before that, and then I went after it and read what was after it, and I'm like, wait a minute. This whole section isn't about God's going to make you rich, which is where all the prosperity doctrine people, they pull John 10:10 out and say, see, God wants us all to be rich. Where before this line, it talks about Jesus being the good shepherd. And after this section, it talks about Jesus being the good shepherd. And there's some challenges with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And Jesus in the middle of there talks about, so I've come to get, my sheep know my voice, and so I've come for my sheep. And oh, by the way, I have sheep y'all don't know about from a different flock that are also my sheep that I've come to take, which is obviously a point out at the Gentiles, not just the Jews. And obviously the Pharisees aren't enjoying what he's saying. But I was like, okay, wait a minute. John 10:10, everybody pulls this out and says, and have life more abundantly. Where has Jesus done something that's sort of in the more abundant category, which is kind of over the wall? And I was drawn to the wedding of Cana in John 2. And so as I read a bunch of stuff about the wedding of Cana and looked at some of the conversations and some of the commentaries, it appears for those that spend a lot of time looking at the Bible and how each word means and looks like there's sort of three tiers that people talk about. One is it's a story about a wedding. One is, well, it's a story about a wedding in a small Jewish community. So you got to layer on to it's a wedding, that it's a small Jewish community. And then there's the people who say, well, yeah, but on top of that is this Christological thing where everything talks about everything from the beginning of time to the end of time, and Christ coming and Christ dying, and to the point that even is on in chapter 2, verse 1, it starts out on the third day there was a wedding. They said, the third day. See, that's just like him rising on the third day, and so they're piling these layers on, and I'm not going to that last layer. I'm just not going there. Mostly because it's over my head, but also because some of it gets past what I considered for the engineer in me kind of the obvious, that, oh yeah, that makes sense. There was a wedding and they ran out of wine, and so you got them some more wine and everybody was happy. That all makes sense, but then you start parsing it up into, yeah, but this was the third day and the wine refers to this and the pots refer to that okay. But we can enjoy the things that I think the Lord tells us here in the wedding of Cana. And it's the first 11, actually goes through verse 12 of John chapter 2. Does anybody want to read that just for fun? Who's got a book?
John 2 what?
1 through 12.
I can start.
Go for it.
Okay, so John 2. Okay. The next day there was a wedding celebration in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples were also invited to the celebration. The wine supply ran out during the festivities, so Jesus' mother told him, they have no more wine. Dear woman, that's not our problem, Jesus replied. My time has not yet come. But his mother told the servants to do whatever he tells you. Standing nearby, there were six stone water jars just for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each could hold 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus told the servants, fill the jars with water. When the jars had been filled, he said, now dip some out and take it to the master of ceremonies. So the servants followed his instructions. When the master of ceremonies tasted the water that was now wine, not knowing where it had come from, of course the servants knew. He called the bridegroom over. A host always serves the best wine first, he said. Then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you have kept the best until now. This miraculous sign at Cana in Galilee was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After the wedding, he went to Capernaum after a few days with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples.
So first of all, when he talks about abundantly, you've got 6 pots with sort of 20 or 30 gallons each. So we got somewhere between 120 and 180 gallons of water. To put in perspective, that's about 50 cases of wine. It's not a small amount of wine. Not only that, being silly, he just filled up the water that everybody washes their hands with and made it wine. So nobody's going to take a bath until we've drunk all this wine. No bathing until the wine's gone, guys. And you think about it, it's a lot of wine. And you think about it, the water is actually used for washing people's feet as they come in from the road. Mm-hmm. It's also used for washing your hands and your upper arms when you're getting ready to eat. And they even wash, if you're doing pure Jewish tradition, you're washing your hands between every course. So the water's used for lots of things. And now the water jugs are filled with wine, really good wine too. So I'm not sure how that all worked out. But anyway, there's about
They all went home looking really red.
Exactly. But either way, we got 50 cases of good wine that's being imbibed. And so when Jesus performed, all right, so in the Middle East, we all have had tents on our street before. These kind of celebrations, whether it's a funeral or a wedding, somebody puts up a tent in the street in front of their house. It goes on for a week. It's not just casual. It's kind of everybody in the neighborhood. If you're in a small town, it's the whole town is involved. You're serving wine throughout. People aren't getting drunk. People are just drinking wine semi-continuously for a week. And to run out of wine, to a point, the wine is part of the festivities. And so if you really ran out of wine, in today's day and age, we might say, oh, sorry, the wine's kind of running out. After that, we're going to be doing grape juice or ginger ale or water, guys. I didn't realize there were going to be so many people drinking so much, no big deal. And we in America today will go, yeah, well, okay, we understand. You bought 5 cases of wine. We all kind of have over imbibed. Okay, we understand. In this culture, over a week's time frame, this would be an embarrassment. Mm-hmm. And it would be it would be shame or lack of honor. And in an honor-shame society, Jesus is solving an honor-shame problem, not really just a lack of wine. So he's actually solving a cultural issue in and around the festivities, and without the wine, it's not really quite as festive. Now, I looked up because somebody said something. How many of you, I think y'all have probably, heard a sermon about Jesus's response to his mother? Where he says, woman, what's that got to do with you and me? I think I've heard dozens and dozens of sermons. I've never really just kind of looked. And so the last couple of days, somebody said something, so I looked. So in this part of John's gospel, the word mother, he's writing in Greek, so it's a Greek word. The word that he uses here that is woman is from a Greek word that means woman. It's not mom, it's not mother, it's not hey lady. The word is the woman that gets translated in English as woman. In addition to that, every time in the Gospel of John that he uses a Greek word to refer to a woman, he uses the exact same word. So whether it's talking to his mother at the cross where he says, woman, behold your son, referencing to John and whose household she's going to go live in, or it says, and they brought to her a woman caught in adultery. Or he said, women, where are the woman? Where is this? Or this woman did this, or this woman did that. It's all the same word. John uses the same word every single time. So I don't really get all of these sermons about, is this an insult, or is he being nice to his mom, or is this an idiomatic expression that says, hey, mom, why are you bothering me? John uses the same word every time he references a woman in his gospel. It is always the same word. I'm not sure there's a big deal here. Now, it does appear mom's coming in and saying, it looks like they're out of wine, and he's saying, why is that my problem? Mom, what? I mean, why is this my problem? Shouldn't they have bought a few more cases before the wedding? It does seem that he's asking that kind of question, but this isn't some magical insult or something that I've seen in other things. It's just the word, well, woman. Now, Mary obviously is referred to as Jesus' mother in the book of John. She's not referred to as Mary. She's just Jesus' mom. And in the beginning here, it talks about there's a wedding. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples, seems like he's got about 7 or 8 right now at this point in time. He hasn't got the full 12 yet. So, and Jesus and his disciples are invited, but mom's already there. So again, we don't have any reference in here that talks about, well, was she invited and Jesus invited? Was that the inference? Or was it she was helping out the family? There's evidently some extra biblical sources who say this was her sister's son getting married. And so she was helping everybody out, and thus sort of helping out with what's going on. And so she comes to Jesus with, hey, looks like we're running out of wine. Can you help out here?
So this could have been Jesus's cousin? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
That's what they're inferring to, but some of that's extra biblical. It's evidently fairly traditional, but okay, it doesn't say it here. Either way, even in a small town, you've been in the Middle East, even in a small town in the Middle East, something like this going on that lasts for a week in a celebration of this magnitude, kind of everybody in the town is going to be involved pretty much. And so it isn't a surprise that somebody might say that, hey, looks like we're running out of wine. We need to do something. Jesus obviously responds. He obviously responds dramatically as well as very large magnitude. Like I say, 50 cases of wine made out of water. And we know it's good wine because the head waiter goes, well, this is good stuff. Hey, dude, what the hey? You normally serve this stuff first because it's the more expensive wine. And then you go to Mogan David 2020 afterwards. And the focus that I see then is when you get to the end in 11, where it says, and this is the beginning of Jesus' signs, and it manifests his glory, and his disciples believe in him. So he could have kind of done one sheepskin or, a couple of bottles and hoped to tide them over or something, kind of do like Elijah where, here's one bottle, you keep pouring, it never runs out. I mean, but he chose to do something that was absolutely dramatic. And everybody in the house knew what it was, and his disciples see it, glorify God, and say, I guess he is the Messiah, based on what we're seeing. Because a couple of them are, if you read back in verse in chapter 1, they're all saying, I think we found the Messiah, come see. As he chooses each of the disciples, some of them go to a friend or go to their brother Andrew, go to his brother Simon, Andrew's brother Simon, and say, I think we found the Messiah, come and see. And so at the end of this wedding, it's like, okay, he's manifested his glory in a very dramatic way. And they're like, I guess it's true. I guess we found the Messiah. But I think what we miss is the fact that what he's culturally doing is fixing a shame honor problem, so that the family that's having the wedding isn't dishonored. He's doing it to somebody, either he knows, his mom knows, his family knows. This isn't just a stranger's house he walked by and said, looks like you need a little bit of wine. This is again, very cultural, very us. I think I've told you, people would come to me the last time I was in Cairo and say, gee, my, cousin's mother's uncle's brother's second cousin's wife's sister needs some help. And so we're all taking up a collection or doing X and do Y to help them out. And I'm sitting there going, I have no idea what you said. Obviously, they're not related to me. But now that I'm head of the department, I guess I'm part of the family. Okay. Everybody's kind of giving 20 pounds. Okay. I guess I'm giving 20 pounds to help out. We know that that's how this works. We know that that's how this happens. We know that this has been going on for centuries and still goes on today. And so Jesus is helping. He's doing it in a dramatic way that demonstrates his glory and who he is. And he's blessing the people around him with 50 cases of wine. I think what it says to me for when we're then reacting with people around us is, how do we do the extravagant thing? How do we do the thing where, I think it's Mark, where it says, let your light so shine before men, that they see your good works and do what? Glorify your Father, which is in heaven. They see what you do and they go, wow, God. Not wow, Bob, not wow, Mary Kay, not wow, the Billingtons, but they see what you're doing and go, wow, God, and God is good. And to me, in order to have somebody see what we do and go, wow, God, what we have to do, it has to be to a point different or extravagant. It's like the guys in Russia who said to me, you're a construction manager, but you don't drink, smoke, or chew. We don't get it. I'm like, well, there is a reason for that. And we can have that conversation if you'd like to. And sometimes we would have that conversation about, well, there's a higher, I answer to a higher person, and drink, smoke, and chew just, yeah, it's not good. So I tried to emulate my father. And I think in some way, how do we show our lives, show our good works in such a way that people go, wow, God. And to me, that's the kind of the ultimate challenge that for me comes out of here. How do we, Christ is showing his glory and people are believing in him, and he and the Father are one. So kind of feel like he's demonstrating the goodness of God in a situation where we're avoiding shame. And Robin can turn it off.